last few years have changed a lot. People use a lot of other modes of communications. Their telephone, they're texting, they're on Facebook, they're sending emails. So a lot of this process is assuming person-to-person speech. It also seems to me it'd work in all these other modes, but it seems to me a lot of that process may have changed in the last few years because of all these other devices they use. Do you feel it's just as effective, or is that sort of a way people block?
I would say it's not as effective because there's a whole piece of connection missing. All this technology, there's been some studies recently about how this generation is 40% less empathetic than a few generations before them. And I was actually just reading an article that quotes Franz Duval, who wrote the book The Age of Empathy. Franz Duval is a primatologist who studies empathy in primates. And one of the things you find is that facial expression is a huge piece of connection. It's a huge piece of empathy, of being able to connect with people. And an interesting thing that they write in there is that people who have lost use of the muscles in their face, they're paralyzed in their facial muscles, oftentimes become very suicidal, very depressed, very unhappy, because they've lost an ability to express themselves. That's not that much different than texting. Mm-hmm. You're not getting to see, that facial expression, that tonal quality, the context of how these things are. I can tell you that as a mediator, doing mediations for the New Haven court system, in Superior Court, people are coming to me because of arrest, either breach of peace, assault 3, criminal trespass, criminal threatening. The amount of cases that come to us from Facebook, texting. I mean, if it were 1 or 2 cases, it'd be kind of laughable, but it's not. It's a lot of cases. I mean, I'm not sure I'd throw an exact number on it, but we're getting an enormous amount of cases, especially from young people, where the root cause of this was stuff that was written in a text, stuff that was written on Facebook. And reminding ourselves that words are only 7% of communication. There's a whole 93% missing, when you get a text. You might have a couple more percentage points, on context. You might gain a few percentage points on timing. After that, you got 7% words. What do they mean?
I was going to ask just that question. There's the source of these conflicts, the text messages, postings on Facebook, where one person reads it and they tell another person, and it finally gets back to the person who was the object of the posting. And
a lot of times one person writes something on somebody's wall on Facebook. Somebody else reads it and misinterprets it, so they respond to it. Mm-hmm. And then someone else reads that and misunderstands that. And now this little feud is beginning to start. Why? Because people don't have a defriend button, I'm not sure. It's interesting how these little things come. I actually had 2 young women fighting because their boyfriends had been texting back and forth, pitting them against each other. So they made a plan to go fight it out. They never had an argument or a fight. It happened between 2 other people.
They had instigators, is what it appeared.
And because all they saw were the texts going back and forth, see, look, they said this about you. You're missing this whole other piece of empathy.
But then you do get unfriended in Facebook, and it seems kind of hostile.
There are conflicts there. People who have defriended each other that were friends for. I'm amazed at the level of things that people are willing to, sacrifice over technology. On the other hand of that, I've actually used Facebook chat to offer empathy to friends, and using the exact same format that I would use speaking, saying, are you feeling sad because you really wanted this to happen? Were you really needing this and that's caused you to feel this? And it actually does work. I don't know if it's as effective, but they felt heard, seen, and valued from this text, chat that was happening on Facebook. I've also come to love Skype, where I can talk to my family and friends or get empathy buddies. They actually have an NVC, it's called NVC Link on Skype, where you can Skype back and forth to people across the globe who will either want to give or receive empathy. And you see them. Either you hear them, you see them, you can connect with them, you can type with them. And so I think there's, for every give and take, there's give and take. So I think it goes both ways. I think there's a lot of danger in technology and what it's doing to us as far as empathy is concerned and connection. And on the other hand, there are ways people are using it to connect, and it's actually working.